The Penguin episode 6 is out. Another good entry, but I am a little bit concerned about the last couple episodes now. Mainly because we get a really good moment from Victor. We get some really good character moments with Oz and some of the people around him. And we end the episode on a cliffhanger. And my concern is that because this is only planned to be one season, I don't know if they're going to kill people off and kind of cut off their development at the knees. But action-wise, this was a really good one. It did end pretty much how I said it would, where I thought episode 6 and 7 would be like the low point for Oz, since he's the protagonist, even though he's obviously not a good guy. And they do a kind of weird thing here where it feels like we did a time jump, but then there's a line in the episode where you're like, oh, it's only been a couple days. So it seems like things have escalated really quickly. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Let's just get into it. So we start off right away, pretty much just getting exposition from Oz to Victor about the current situation, which is that there's a power vacuum in Gotham. People are trying to figure out who holds the power, who holds the money, who holds the drugs. He's using a bunch of random little gangs in these underground tunnels to kind of get around. And what he's saying is essentially that the Falcons have no one left except for Sal, whose family's dead, and Sophia, who's the last Falcon, and doesn't even like her name. And again, he kind of fucks up in this episode. And he fucks up a lot. And the way this episode ends, I'm also concerned about how he's going to get out of it, because presumably he's going to survive the season. Sophia's boning her previous doctor. It's really weird because there's like blood on him and shit. So I don't know if you're supposed to take that as like she's fucking crazy and like real freaky or what. But their relationship is so weird that I still actually don't know what I think about what's going on between them or what his motivations are. It seems like at this point, with only 2 episodes left, that he really is just a simp. But I can't tell what her deal is, because we know that she's obviously much more calculating than him, or at least that's how it appears. She's pretty much like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Get the hell out. He's like, when you find Oz, feel free to use me, essentially to torture him. And even with her terrible mullet haircut, I still think I can fix her. So her and Sal are kind of making small talk. And he says that his son liked the food a certain way. And she says, your son was right. It is good this way. And Sal gets pissed off. So he's obviously still pretty raw about the whole thing with his son and wife. No surprise there, obviously. And Victor had a line about this to Oz, and then from Sophia's side, we see the same thing, where they're trying to chase down essentially their mules, or the people giving out the drugs. And she's like, they just keep disappearing, because they don't know what's going on yet, and how they keep disappearing. Obviously, they're going down into the tunnels and the underground network. And that's really important for Oz to try to keep everything a secret right now. He doesn't really have like the military force that they have. Even though he's gotten them to wipe each other out somewhat, he still just doesn't have that level of weaponry and people to fight back openly. I love her crazy face. So her and Maroney are talking, and she pretty much comes to the conclusion that you would expect, which is we need to make an example of some of the people dealing drugs for him. No surprise there. She's ruthless, and this is a gang turf war. And I'm a little bit surprised Oz wasn't more worried about that. But for Oz, he's just working with all these local gangs. He doesn't really give a shit about any of these people. For him, if they die, who gives a shit? Other than what it does to him logistically. So in Crown Point, they don't have power. Oz is saying he'll get the power back on, he'll take care of it. And he catches Victor kind of feeding into his mom's delusions and her dementia about Oz's brothers being alive. And Oz is like, knock that off, you're going to make it worse. So then once she kind of comes to, she always goes back into bitch mode. And she's kind of shaming Oz for bringing her back here and saying that he's rubbing it in her face. And she's just really fucking unpleasant to be around, I would imagine. So obviously, relatively quickly, they string up 3 people dealing drugs. They try to scare all the local gangs off. They cut the pinky off to send a message to Oz. And he understands what they're doing right away. And like I said, he doesn't really give a shit about these people. So he's not too worried about it. And he keeps saying, we're going to make a deal with the triads anyway, so fuck it. And essentially that there is no loyalty among the gangs, no honor among thieves, all that type of shit. Whoever's got the drugs and the money, that's who people work with. So he says, and I think it's a pretty interesting idea, tonight we're not going to sell any bliss. Just drop it off wherever you want, give it to people for free, get as much out there as possible. And essentially what he's trying to do is create a bunch of addicts, get the people who will back him to see how valuable the drug is. So really a pretty shameless plan, but he's trying to get everyone to move from drops to bliss. And right now he runs the bliss. So if he runs the bliss, he makes it, supplies it, someone will back him that has the force to deal with any threats. So Squid pops back up, who we saw Victor trying to avoid before, and he essentially threatens Victor about Oz's mom and says, look, I want to meet the guy in charge. We can work with you guys. I want to get some fucking money. And eventually Victor gives in and says, okay, I'll arrange a meetup. And this storyline goes pretty much exactly how you'd predict. So not long here, there won't be any more squid. And it's a huge moment for Victor character-wise, which I actually did really like, but I am worried that they're going to kill Victor off at the end of this season, or maybe even next episode. They raid Oz's place looking for some kind of leverage. Sophia says he has no family and his mom's dead too. And Sal's frustrated because he's like, he took everything from me and he has nothing to even take. They're rooting through his place and bitching. And then Sophia, while Sal's throwing a tantrum and destroying shit, finds Eve's drawer and like her underwear and a picture of her. And this episode, really, we have Oz getting fucked over by multiple women. Like, women seem to be one of his weaknesses between his mom and Eve. Oz is looking for his mom, and he sees that she was asleep in the tub all night, and the water's freezing, so obviously she's freezing. And we can see her dementia is rapidly progressing to where she's really, really in bad shape. And this is kind of a downer scene and also kind of an interesting one, because this is the first time that she really admits how bad it is. Normally, she's kind of confused or in denial, but she's like, I can't do math anymore. I'm hallucinating. I don't want to be a vegetable. If it comes to that, you need to kill me. And Oz is like, what the hell are you talking about? No. Like, he's still in denial and refusing to euthanize her. And it's interesting because she says, if I lose my dignity, what else do I have? And this is something I've talked about all season, where the appearance of other people, sort of this honor culture mentality, is what really guides her principles and beliefs, along with Oz and the people around them as well. It's interesting that she comes out and says, if I don't have my dignity, why bother? Because she's poor, she's got no money, no power. So she's just in a real bad spot right now. And even here, the way that she motivates him is never kind of asking for love or forgiveness or kindness. She calls him a pussy and says, suck it up. So she's been this way the whole fucking season. And again, just another little insight into how Oz ended up the way that he did. So Oswald is explaining to Victor that she had Parkinson's, then Alzheimer's, and now something called Lude body. And he's pretty much just venting his frustration about there's nothing they can do, while Victor's trying to explain about this guy's squid to him. And Oz asks if there's a problem, and Victor's like, no, I'm good. So we know that Victor's going to take care of it. Obviously, take care of it in these gang shows pretty much means one fucking thing. And they do a nice little thing here. They look out the window, and you can see City Hall's all lit up. And essentially what the explanation is that we get is that they're diverting power to the rich neighborhoods, and the poor people have no power. And that's why we see Oz fighting with generators and that sort of shit the whole episode, and his mom bitching about the electricity. Sophia's asking the hookers if any of them know Eve, and they're all like, no, like they're denying it. They have Eve's back. And the one that we've seen before says, I can help you. And she takes the big fat stack of cash from Sophia and shows her where Eve is. So we see Oz find a councilman. Obviously, he's corrupt. He knows Carmine, or knew Carmine Falcone. And Oz is like, you're going to work with me now, or I'm going to fucking release all this shit about you. Continuing to blackmail, one of his main methods throughout the season to leverage people. So he threatens him. He's like, make him stop diverting fucking power from Crown Point. All this because his mom is cold and she has this lewd body and whatever else. And he's tired of fighting with fucking generators. So one of the local gang guys calls Oz. And he's like, stop delivering your shit in my turf. And Oz is like, we had a deal. Fuck you. And the guy's trying to back out because Sophia's message did get across. They were his guys that got strung up. And now he's scared. All makes sense. There's nothing too deep with this episode, I don't think. I like the episode, but not really a ton going on. Just pretty straightforward. Which I think tends to happen as you get closer to the end. There's less options, less room for surprises that make sense. So, no big deal. And I really like the scene with Victor and Squid because they meet up. Squid's like, let's go to the guy. Victor tries to buy time. He's like, no, he's out for the night. And Squid's like, I'll wait. And then Victor tries to give him some money, get him to just kind of back off. And Squid throws it in his face, just being a total dick. So Squid threatens to rat him out. And Oz said at the beginning of the episode that secrecy was their most important weapon right now, pretty much leaving Victor with no choice. So he starts walking like he's going to take him and then turns around and shoots him in the throat and then runs off. And obviously this is the first person that he's killed like this. He had the one with the car, but this is a guy that he knew and obviously much more up close and personal. Just a really good escalation scene. And we know that Victor's character has been building toward this all season. And this is why I said I'm a little bit concerned about the last couple episodes, because if the show is only planned for one season, I think they might kill Victor and really end his arc when I think his development is still kind of in the beginning as a character. And this is a really nice scene too, because Sophia shows up at Eve's place. We find out Eve told the girl to take the money and lead her here because the girls were going to protect her and she didn't want them getting hurt. So they protect each other. And you can tell Sophia is really envious of that. And I like this part too, because this is the first time that Eve openly admits that she's just using Oz And this is why I said women are kind of his weakness, because his mom is obviously bullying him into decisions. He just blackmailed a councilman. Eve ends up being kind of his betrayer here, who he seems to really be attached to. But I mentioned all season about how unhealthy their relationship is. So not a huge surprise here. At first, Eve says she doesn't know where he's at. He would never tell her something like that. And then as they talk, and Sophia reveals that she's not the hangman, her dad was the one who killed those women, and Oz knew and was working with her dad anyway because those were her girls. Finally, she gives in and betrays him and says Crown Point, and this is what ends up fucking over Oz at the end of the episode. Just a really good scene, really logical, and you could tell that Eve and Penguin's relationship has been really slowly developing like this the whole season, because every time she's like, oh, I'm going to leave, and he talks her into staying, it's not surprising at all that this is the route that their relationship went. And it's interesting because it really does seem like Sophia's going to kill her all the way till the end. And then when she lets Eve go, that's what makes Eve tell her. And Eve just asks that she not hurt her other girls when she's done with her, essentially. And I like it because we see Sophia has some kind of moral compass. She's not just a cold-blooded murderer. Like we saw that with the child a couple episodes ago when she gassed everyone. And we're seeing it here now with Eve, where she seems to be using just judgment and not actually just crazy and killing people for fun. So a good little character thing for her as well. And we do get a nice little mentor-apprentice moment here again between Oz and Victor. And I love the line from Oz here where he says it gets easier. With the implication being that now that you're committed to this lifestyle, this is going to be routine for you. This is just how we live. And I like that Victor's upset and not just tough guy, no emotions. It's the first person he's killed like this. So it's good work for both characters. Not a huge scene, but I'm glad they took the time to do it. So he gets all the gangs together for what he calls the Gold Summit, and he's trying to talk them all into working together. And I like his speech. He talks about how at City Hall, none of them like each other, but they work together, and they run the whole fucking city. Meanwhile, they're getting killed by gangs that don't even bother learning their names because they're not worthy of knowing. And one of the guys calls him out for being a betrayer of Sophia, stealing her product, of killing Alberto Falcone. And he's like, yeah, I did it. I'll do whatever it takes, but I do have a fucking code. And he's really kind of emotionally open for the first time in a while here, especially in front of other people. And he had tossed them all a beer at the beginning of his speech or right before. And he sits down and opens one and drinks it. And then one guy opens his and the rest open theirs. So we see that they're all going to agree to work together, even though they hate each other. So this is pretty much Penguin uniting all the leftovers. And now he says that they have more power and territory than the big gangs. So we see he actually did get the power back on. But Sophia's watching Victor and his mom dance with a crowbar in her hand. So I'm assuming that Victor might die this next episode, and Oz is in real trouble based on the preview. And that's it. This was the shortest episode. Like I said, pretty straightforward. Some nice little character things in there. There is a part at the beginning that I forgot to mention where he's talking about how they're building up the poor areas so people are going to remember them. A callback to the first scene from the first episode where he's talking about a guy who they threw a parade for when he died and he knew everybody's name, made him feel special. And now he's kind of doing the same thing for Crown Point and its poor people. But yeah, that's it. Really curious to see what they do with these last two episodes. It's been a great show so far, and it's just going strong now. So if you've watched the show, let me know what you think. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.